Hello, everyone. This is Tim Brown, author of the book Uncommon Athletes, and I'm blessed to have with me today as we continue our series, chapter by chapter of the book. Today, we'll talk about chapter 2, making an uncommon adjustment and doing it with the right attitude. And so today, I'm blessed to have Greg Turner with me. I've known GT for a number of years, and I just felt his experience would be a great one to speak on this chapter. Greg has over 25 years in the sports industry. He's experienced a well-versed and unique career, from playing at the collegiate level, serving as director for iHoops, once the official U basketball for the NCAA and NBA, also beginning first-team basketball as well. He's also was, of course, a former player at the University of Auburn. He was a sports commentator as well. He's just done a lot of lead analyst for the OVC basketball. So he's done a variety of things as we talk about making adjustments. One thing that I jumped out at me that 1984, take me to that NCAA tournament game. In 1984, Auburn's first trip to the tournament, because we all know Auburn's a football school. Take me back, Greg.
Well, some would say, basketball is number 3 on Auburn's campus, behind football, spring football, and then Auburn basketball. But that 1984 year was a kind of a storybook year. We had the previous years, we just kind of going to that conference tournament. You didn't know whether you're going to play on that first day or you get eliminated that first day. But here we were seeded. We had a bye. We were one of the top seeds, and but we ended up losing that game to Kentucky with Kenny Walker hitting a shot at the buzzer. Oh, but we were selected to go to the NCAA tournament, and how things were so much different 30 plus years ago. It just wasn't a whole lot of hoopla about where you were going to be seated, how you were seated and who you were going to play and all. We were just happy to go. And a lot of that stuff that you have now is not on television. So, we ended up going to North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina. That's where we were in that region. And I think we were in the region with Temple, St. John's, Indiana, then Richmond. And so we end up playing the Richmond Spiders, man. And that game, it still hurts me to this day when I look at it on ESPN. Occasionally they'll show the kind of throwback games and collegiate games. And so, you didn't have the 3-point line. Right. And we were sitting in that zone. And Johnny Newman, who went on to play in the NBA a number of years, they were up big, man, at the half. And we came back and cut it down and ended up losing, though. But that was the first, you're right, the first team in Auburn's history to go to the NCAA tournament, that 1984 team, which obviously had Charles Barkley, Chuck Person, and those names are familiar with basketball fans.
Right. I was reading an article about you were talking about that game, and you were sharing that all you had to do was throw the ball in the chuck.
Yeah. When I look at it, I still think the outcome is going to be different whenever I look at it, TB. Yeah. But that's all we really had to do. They had a big guy. His name was Fly, Richmond, that is, the Richmond Spiders. Okay. And they're a well-coached team, but they had nobody, man, that was the athlete that we had. They had a very good team. Right. But Bill Fly was a 6'9" kid, all we had to do was just throw the ball into the jaws, and he would, he was just so much more gifted physically and stronger than everybody. But I think I don't know what I ended up scoring, but I know I was leading the team in scoring at half, and I may have ended up with 12 points or something like that. I remember missing a dunk that first half, but then Charles passed it to me, and I got another opportunity and converted on a dunk. But I just remember us getting down big, and we sat in that zone, and I think Sonny Smith, who's still around, our coach, was a little nervous of that. Their plays, and he didn't want us running around trying to chase them. So we sat in that zone. But man, Johnny Newman was shooting so far out, and they just built a big lead. Yeah,
that kind of leads us to our discussion on adjustments. Even from that experience, you guys had one game plan. You came in with a game plan, and then as it unfolded, they were just hitting shots. Yeah, sounds like in that game.
And as you so eloquently put it in your book, man, uncommon adjustments. And it takes uncommon attitude. And first of all, I was so happy to be a part of the book, but Tim, when you look at the title, Uncommon, you got to look that word up. Like when you're doing your, Bible study, uncommon means unique, special. Right. And so that situation obviously needed something unique and special to happen, but it didn't happen for us. But I mean, we eventually came back, but we ran out of time. Right. And, but such is life. Yeah. It doesn't always go the way you want it to go, but you have to be able to not only change on the fly, but I think that attitude and that adjustment is the willingness to adjust. And so we stayed in that zone. We weren't going to come out that zone. And Johnny Newman was shooting so far out, man. And so until we made the adjustment in the second half, but it was a little too late. And that's part of life too. You have to know when to adjust and when to have that attitude to do so.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, how important is that attitude when you're making those adjustments? Because, sometimes guys are stubborn. They don't want to make that, or they make that. We'll just specifically talk about players. They'll adjust, but they'll adjust with an attitude, They're mad about the adjustment, Man, coach, why you playing me here? What's going on? I'm scoring on this cat. Well, why you want me to pass the ball now? How important is that attitude and not making that adjustment?
You're right. The attitude and not seeing the big picture, as you talk about in the chapter, not seeing the totality of what's about or what could happen. And I think you write in so eloquently in that chapter too. The key is the attitude and having that attitude and being able to adjust. But the old saying, your attitude determines your altitude. Right. How high you want to go, or how or the adjustments you make. It all depends on your willingness and doing so in a positive way. So having that attitude and choosing to maybe not be in the circumstance that you're in, but looking at it favorably and saying, okay, well, we got to change. If we don't change, this is what's going to happen. So, but you have to be willing, and that willingness. And we talk about that in that chapter 2 in your book, Tim, the circumstances is how you see it, how you see your own circumstances. Do you see them as just because the coach told me, and and you may not see the whole big picture, that coach is asking of you, and the reason he asks you to do something to adjust is for the good of the team. Mm-hmm. And just like in life, your parents may ask you to do something, Lord, and you go kicking and screaming, and you have that negative attitude. And how many times that when you've gone ahead and done it, and then you've seen the end result, and you wonder, okay, well, that's what mom and dad was trying to get me to do. So there's a reason behind it.
It's worth it, yeah. And in that, we also talk about being flexible. And just looking at your bio, it seems like you have had to be very flexible throughout your whole career. Becoming a player, so you're also an assistant coach, then a commentator. Working with young guys in a mentoring program, and now this position with AAU. How does flexibility play in making those adjustments?
Well, I think it's very important because again, in life, you can, as in on the basketball court or on the football field, or on the baseball diamond, you have a mindset of what it is that you see that you want to accomplish and want to do. But again, life rears its sometimes ugly head, and you have to adjust, and you have to be flexible, and you have to be, if you want to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And Tim, sometimes, as we, you talk about it in the book too, I mean, it may be another way to do it, and I love the analogy and the illustration, you gave of, my Ohio State player, Mr. Braxton, that guy, that's a great illustration of how, All-American at one position, All-American, but now there's other, you get injured, and there's 2 more people vie for that position, and we're playing so well. He could have come right in and just said, man, I'm the starting quarterback. But he didn't even look at it that way, and he looked at it from a whole other angle. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you something, Tim, I've been in that complex at Ohio State. Okay. And I remember Jason Singleton, our good friend, showing me around in that complex. And I remember, and Braxton Miller, he was there.
Right.
On the team at the time. And, they have that chart where they have all those different, whether, who's the strongest, who's the fastest, who runs the shuttle.
Right.
Man, I'm going to tell you what, that joker, if he wasn't one or two
right.
on just about everything that I
thing.
saw up there, that's what kind of athlete he was. So back in his mind, the adjustment and being flexible, he was like, hey, man, I don't have to play quarterback.
Right.
Matter of fact, I probably am going to play the position I want to play at the next level. So this may just giving me a head start. So his whole mindset was flexible, and he did it willingly, and he had a positive attitude.
Right.
And, that's the other thing, you talked about, you use that illustration in the chapter about the oak tree and the palm tree,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that oak tree is, man, it holds on. Like we were holding on against Richmond for that zone defense. we wanted to stay with that. And some people are like that. No, this is the only way. But then you can be like that palm tree, man. And in the most severest of storms, it moves with the storm and it bends, but it doesn't break. And, and that's something that you can learn and kids can learn from Braxton Miller, man, how he approached that whole situation, man, and being able to change positions and then even upset the apple cart of the team and still was successful at the end because his ultimate goal was getting to the NFL.
The league, right.
He knew he could do it. Yeah.
So during that leads us to these times, with COVID-19 and a lot of athletes, most athletes, their seasons have been interrupted, so to speak, and they have to look at. Can you speak to the perspective and maybe the persistence that it's going to take to get through this, as those athletes, they come out of it? What perspective should they have?
Well, for one, I think you when you speak of persistence in this chapter, Tim, as I'm speaking, it's unique and it's hard to speak to the author of the book, but I think persistence means, and you talk about resilience in that chapter as well, but persistence, man, is knowing what that end goal is and not giving up and being consistent and persistent and not giving up, but staying the course. And, I also think what it's going to take during times like this is not losing sight of your goals, but you have to compartmentalize things, Tim. I think, it's one goal at a time. It's one step at a time and being positive. And again, being willing to adjust and being willing to have, again, everybody doesn't have it. That's why you titled the book Uncommon Athlete. So if you want to be special and if you want to be unique and if you want to do something nobody has ever done, Tim Brown has laid it out for you how to do it and what it takes to be that uncommon athlete. In this chapter, again, we talked about that uncommon adjustments that you have to make. Special adjustments. You have to do something nobody else has never done. And in this time, we're in a global pandemic. You still have to keep, as an athlete, you have to look ahead and be persistent in your goal. Don't give up. Sometimes it may require you to go around and up and down, but you still have to keep your eye on exactly where it is that you want to go. And so I think that's very important.
Yeah. Could you speak to that? That's great. I like that. You just got to stay persistent and you got to keep your eye on that goal, what the ultimate goal is. You might have to go a different route to get there, but you got to know I'm going to get there. It may not look the way I thought it was going to look, but I'm still getting there.
Exactly.
You particularly with the first team in our hoops basketball, you saw a lot of players, hundreds of players come through that program, top, quote unquote, top players. Does anyone or anybody stick out in your mind who fits this, what we're talking about, who kind of fits this chapter?
Boy, there's quite a few. And Tim, you were right there with us, man, from the beginning to the end with that program. And, when I think about the uncommon athlete, I don't know what really comes to mind. I started thinking about the young man that's in the NBA now with the Houston Rockets, Patrick Patterson. For some reason, he comes to mind because, he had a storied high school career playing with O.J. Mayo, who, was recruited from high school on and, played in the NBA a number of years and had some issues and, out of the league now. But he's a guy that was able to adjust and not being in the limelight, but still, kept his focus, You know, ended up going to, you know, at Kentucky, you know, now he's with the Houston Rockets.
Yeah.
And, you know, that power forward, some people would say that position is passe. And if you can't shoot the ball, he's developed a three-point shot. You know, he can hit that shot. Playing with Houston, you got to be able to shoot because, you know, those guys are going to dribble, penetrate, and kick.
Right.
So, I mean, but he's one guy that kind of comes to mind like that. I mean, I even think about, you know, even Mike Conley.
That's what I was thinking about Mike.
Yeah, I mean, those guys, Greg Oden, but Mike is just, you know, and people were, to this day, were flabbergasted that he went as high as he did, you know, in the draft. And the only reason he hasn't been an all-star is because he's been in the West as a guard. He should have been an all-star. He's had an all-star type year, a few of these years, because this is, what, 12, 13, man. Ain't that unbelievable years that he's been in the league, is making a ton of money. But again, he's persistent. He's you know, his adjustments that he's made. And just think, remember, he was one of the first guys that signed that mega $30 million a year. Everybody was like, he's not worth that kind of money. Hey,
making more than
the way the
market
market.
that time.
Right, he was that year. And it was the way the market, you know, and he just, I mean, he never lost sight. He was persistent of who he was and what I do best. I know what I bring to my team. His scoring average went up every year. He didn't let that get into his back of his head that people were saying, you're making $30 million. You need to be playing like you $30 million. I mean, he increased every part of his game, every statistical category, but still stayed true to who he was and being a team leader. So there's quite a few guys, man. I think
that's some good ones. Yeah, I think about those, and just the adjustment, and they made it with the right attitude as well.
Yes,
because neither one of those guys. When you think about Mike, it was, you know, he didn't come in as the top guy, even at Ohio State that year, that recruiting class. He wasn't the top guy.
You're right,
but he just worked and just kept his eye on that prize, you know.
And it shows you. And it shows you, yeah, some basketball aficionados, they know a little more about, you know, than we do in terms of the game and how it's played and how, you know, that his attitude and then being able to do what we want him to do, it worked. And you can see right now playing with the Utah Jazz, he's still in the league and still, you know, one of the top guards in the NBA.
Just a great character guy as well.
And a great character young man as well.
Yeah, just a great young man. Well, Greg, I mean, we can go on and on and on. You can more stories, but you know, as we wrap up, I need you to just lead one of them Turnerisms, or lead that word for just an encouragement word for somebody who needs to know how important an adjustment is. How important, even in life, there's adjustment that and particularly for young players, you know, during these times. And I know you're still around the game, so you're still in touch with them. Give me something for them.
Well, I think there's so much in this chapter that the author, Tim Brown, that I'm speaking with, has laid out for everyone. I think it's one area in particular that I love to focus on just quickly is that don't compare yourselves. You know, you talk about that in the chapter because that's something that kids get lost in, and because we're trying to be, you know, the next person, and, you know, and comparisons, you says, will rob us of our ability to adjust. To do what it is that, and I'm going to get biblical, what God has in store for us, because God has a plan and a job for you to do that nobody else can do quite like you can do. So that's important, man. I think that's one thing I love in this chapter. The other thing, you know, when we spoke on the persistence and being able to adjust, you have to ask yourself as a young person too, man, to be an uncommon athlete and to make uncommon adjustments and have that uncommon attitude, you know, the company that you're keeping, you know, am I hanging around dream makers or dream breakers? You know, so that's something else that a young person, I think, and parents can take from this chapter. And last but not least is obviously the you know, the quote that I was so grateful that you've been able to use, man, in the book, that you use in the book. And it says it all when you says, think about it in the end of that chapter, man. If you're adaptable and nimble, that's great, because that's exactly what life requires you to be today.
Right, today. And that's a good word for today. In the world we're in today, being adaptable and nimble.
Exactly.
To be successful in the world today. That's a great word for today. And that's why I believe that the Lord dropped this book in my spirit, that the timeliness of it, you know, that is kind of on time for the times that we're in. you know.
It's
That's
time,
life.
it's timely and it's
Yeah,
timeless.
yeah,
That's what's so good about it, Tim.
yeah. That's the blessing. Well, Greg, as always, I always appreciate our
Oh man.
conversations, and I'm looking forward to the broadcasting this, because I think persons need to hear. Persons need to hear, and it's not just. I'm not speaking about me. I'm talking about you, and just a perspective on this. And I when I thought
Yes.
about this chapter, you were the guy. I know this is the right guy for to really speak to this. And as Greg said, I want to leave everyone with this: be around dream makers, be around those guys. Who are going to help your dreams come true. Because they're the ones who are
Yeah,
going to keep you on the straight and narrow. Those are the
that's
ones
right.
who are going to keep you in the right, make sure you're in the right perspective. And they're going to give you that resilience not to give up, not to
Mm-hmm.
quit.
Mm-hmm.
As you look back on the opportunities that we've had in life, there's always
That's
somebody in
right.
our life that's in
Sure.
our head that keeps telling us, Tim, you can run on.
That's right.
The Bible
That's
says
right.
this, that we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, who tell us
Mm,
to keep on
mm.
running, not to give up. And that's our word for when they're making that adjustment, being flexible. Just keep on running. Keep on
Yes,
running.
sir.
Okay, Greg. Well, I
Uh,
appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to
Anytime,
continuing
man.
on. Yeah.
Anytime. You know I love you, TV,
Yeah.
man.
Appreciate it.
Great work that you're doing, man. Continue to do what you're doing, and I pray that God continue to bless you so you can continue to bless others, man. You're an inspiration to me, so I certainly appreciate it.
Amen. So I want to encourage everyone to get a chance, pick up the book, Uncommon Athletes. Filled with passion, and stay passionate. All right. Thanks for listening, and look
Amen.
forward to seeing you guys in the next chapter.